perspective presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Hello again. Thanks for watching our show. I'm Harry Greenberger, the host of the show, and today we have as a guest a member of our organization, Kevin Bladsacker, and we've got a topic that I think may really pique your interest. You've all heard of the concept of godless communism. Well, is there such a thing as godless capitalism here in America? And is that a good thing? So, Kevin, I'm going to turn this over to you and let you inform us about capitalism in this country.
Well, we so often hear about philosophers, we hear about artists, we hear about activists, but we don't often hear about the capitalist. For the most part, he's off doing his work. He's selling, he's producing, he's managing a business, making money. And that's generally, his opinion is not part of his business. So they're there, but we don't hear about them. But
is the basis for this that this country is based on free enterprise capitalism?
We are a free enterprise system. We're definitely a capitalist system. We're about as far away as from being a communist system as any nation is at this point. And many of the people who have been the foundations of American capitalism have been godless. We start off with the origins. A man who is a lightning rod for controversy is Andrew Carnegie. Andrew
Carnegie, who was a baron thief or something.
Identified as the robber baron, and I've seen that for a man who, by the time he had died, had given a third of $1 billion to charity. It's kind of hard to describe him as the robber baron. It's really not a good fit when you've given a third of $1 billion to charity. Now, he was born in Scotland. Scotland at that time was suffering extremes of sectarian violence. And that was the foundation of him becoming a secular person, his orientation. When he gave money to charities, he gave money to secular charities.
Such as what, libraries?
Libraries, just foundations, schools, institutions.
All right.
Just huge foundations, has changed the world. And the concept of the American steel industry as we know it, so responsible for the quality of American life in the 20th century. If you don't have the American steel, America does not become a world power.
Which we did.
Which we did.
Okay, that's Andrew Carnegie.
And now, about the same time, we got into the concept of the fear of the godless communists, and all these atheists were going to come over and make us into a communist nation. Now, we had already had one of the most successful purveyors of non-belief the 20th century has ever seen was Ayn Rand, and we're talking about a very controversial person.
Yes, you are.
Even within the atheist community, many people are very much opposed to her principles, which are often misunderstood.
And her principles were very, very strongly free enterprise capitalism.
Free, and also the concept of the human quality. He thought humans were very valuable, but they had to create their own value, which is, I find, not that far away from humanism.
All right.
Her value is in a human being, in human ideals.
And she also had come from Russia, communist Russia, and needed to get away from that kind of background.
At the same time that some people were going off to the Russian Revolution thinking it was a great, fun thing to do, she was escaping from that as a refugee.
To this country?
To this country. And she became very successful here and has a lot of devotees.
Well, her book, Atlas Shrugged, which is now, I don't know how many years old, is still selling today, and college students today are reading her book. So it has been able to withstand decades of scrutiny.
Then, as well, about that same time, we had a very big shift in the concepts of economics in the United States, from a pure Keynesian thought to the monetarism by Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman, again, he was influenced by Ayn Rand, but Milton Friedman was not a religious person, born into a Jewish background, but for all practical purposes, identified as a secular person in his orientation. So, again, ironic that fears of godless communism at the same time that American economic thought is beginning to be driven by a godless capitalist.
All right. Now, is that going to hurt people who are hearing this maybe for the first time? Mm-hmm. Is that going to make them dislike atheists even more?
That's going to be some challenges for some people, because these are particularly Milton Friedman. Many of the people in the religious right these days are influenced by Milton Friedman's economic policies. And if they want to cherry pick, if they take the entire Milton Friedman package,
all right,
he's not part of the religious right.
Okay.
Now,
I see that you have some other examples of atheist capitalists. Is that right?
Now, on a more modern vein, some people responsible for a lot of people making a lot of money, and a lot of people getting a lot of money is charities. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Now, the two of these people are donating millions and a large percentage of their very sizable income. I
think maybe it can start with a B and B billions.
I think it may.
My understanding, if I'm correct, is that Buffett and Bill Gates together have agreed to this charitable group into which they are contributing a large percentage of their estates for future use. Is that correct?
The money that they're giving is in the level of game changing for the locations they're bringing their money to. And they can just completely change the life of people. They have worked very hard to get their money. They have not stolen their money. And they've changed the lives of the people that touch in their business. And now, as much fun as they've had earning the billions, they're having a great fun giving the billions away and giving people a better life.
Now, there are people who resent very wealthy people. And if you're talking about these two here, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, they didn't get their millions by taking it away from anyone. Bill Gates had a concept and built a company that provided benefits to the people of the world, and if that made him rich, I don't begrudge him that.
Well, I think if one also were to just maybe get out in a nice day we're having right now in New Orleans and visit the zoo or visit the museum, you're going to see that lots of wealthy people have donated lots of money to provide art and education for people.
Of course.
Now, with Bill Gates, obviously Bill Gates is known as the founder of Microsoft.
Yes.
And is responsible for the Windows operating system built upon eventually Microsoft DOS. So if one would say, well, I don't like Mr. Gates because he's an atheist, I don't want to use Windows as operating system. Well, you could go to some of the alternatives, and let's look at those. We could look at, well, I want to get an Apple computer, so I don't have that atheist behind my machine. You would be buying a machine from a company founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak is a self-identified atheist. Steve Jobs is a self-identified Buddhist, a godless religion, who does not believe in a deity.
Do you see some connection between these people who are creators and workers and the fact that they are non-believers? Is there any kind of connection there?
Well, I think we've looked at surveys, have looked at the education level, at the intelligence level, at the earnings level, and found that typically non-believers tend to be often, particularly at education and intelligence, on the higher end. These are people who are very intelligent and have questioned the paradigm of where they were as far as what a computer does, how a computer is built. Wozniak and Jobs built their first computer out of pieces. Bill Gates could do the same thing as well. So these people had to question things. Now, that process is still continuing because both of those operating systems had their origins in the 70s. But in the last decade, another operating system's come out. So one might say, well, I don't want to have those godless Buddhists and atheists responsible for my computer. I'm going to that other operating system. Well, you could get a Linux-based computer. Linux is developed by a man, Linus Torvalds, born in Finland, now a United States citizen, and he has given his operating system away to people. Does that make him a communist giving everything away? No. Linus Torvalds lives in a very nice $1 million house in Oregon. Very happy to live there, lives a very quiet life. He is also very well paid as not only a computer consultant, because when he gave his software away, he essentially created a permanent career for himself, being paid very well to maintain it. He is still a capitalist. He owns a huge chunk of Red Hat and other companies that produce commercial versions of Linux. So he just didn't want to do the sales process. Again,
you're saying that computer users may just be stuck with the benefit that comes from atheists.
They can't get away from this. Sorry. You can give up the computer and go back to the advocates if you'd like, but if you're using a computer, because even then, although he's not so much of a capitalist, if you're using anything to do with the internet, using web and HTTP, Tim Berners-Lee, who first developed that, is again identified as a Unitarian Universalist, not a theist.
All right. Well, my first association with the Unitarian Universalist Church group, it really came when they asked me if I would like to do their Sunday morning talk. And that's when I found out that they are about as close to secular humanism as you can get, and so I refer to the Unitarians as our kissing cousins. Okay, and so this man is that's his chosen religion.
He has begun the revolution that is now the internet. The internet had existed before, but without the concept of HTTP, the language that websites use to speak to each other, we wouldn't have the interactive experience we have now, which has led to another interesting self-identified atheist, Mark Zuckerberg.
I think most of our audience knows who Mark Zuckerberg is. In fact, there's a movie out currently about what he did to establish his Facebook.
Facebook has again, it's a game changer. You would say, well, one doesn't pay anything to go get a Facebook site. He's just giving away. He's making millions and millions, because when you go to Facebook and you list your interests, advertisers get to put selective ads presented to you based upon your interest. If you like a product, that product knows that, hey, this is a person who uses the product. We can market to them. You get offers. But again, one more atheist.
And when by creating this Facebook, he has become a multimillionaire.
Yes, Mark Zuckerberg is in the class of any toy that one would ever see on television advertised in any show by Robin Leach, or if one watched the Top Gear show on BBC with the high performance luxury cars, Mark Zuckerberg can go buy one whenever he feels like it.
He has it all. Now, I seem to recall that he agreed to join in with the group that is pledging a percentage of their estate to the charitable causes. It seems to me that he's also a part of that same group.
When you look at the company kept by Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, who are known to have a regular poker night, that is some of the most exclusive company in America. And so yes, if you can give away millions or billions to join that company, it's very exclusive and very prestigious.
And they are not evil people.
They're not evil people. No, they're not trying to take over your life. They're not trying to change your life. And for the most part, they've made your life much better.
Well, do you suppose those poker games are high-stake poker games?
Yeah, I would be surprised at no range from betting, you know, I'm going to raise you Des Moines and to you know, okay, here's another penny. I'll match you.
All right. Now, you got anybody else as examples of these capitalists whom we should admire and respect?
Well, let's look at some other industries. Now, he's not an American atheist or American capitalist, although he has a very strong presence in American business, is Richard Branson.
All right.
Now, Richard Branson, Virgin Mobile,
Virgin Airlines,
Atlantic,
yeah.
Virgin Airlines. Now, what interesting thing about him is that we've heard the concept of there are no atheists in foxholes. Well, we have had discussions with atheists who've been in foxholes, have come back to talk about it. We've had the stories of Pat Tillman, the atheist in the foxhole who was shot by his own troops and didn't live to tell about it. Richard Branson is an adventurer, an old-style balloon adventurer, and he has faced death more than once in his ventures. And when facing death, Richard Branson has not looked to God for rescue, but even facing death, he has been just taking in the beauty of the environment that he's looking at his own death in. So he's comfortable with his mortality. And he's very conscious of being a human and having a possible death, but not stopping that from living.
As an aside from our topic here, one of the, I would consider a real advantage to giving up fear of afterlife and maybe going to hell is that if once you've rejected those supernatural concepts, you can face death with equanimity. You can realize that we're all, from the day we're born, we're all on a tour to the end, and so live life as the fullest and get the most you can out of it without hurting anyone else, and you do not have to fear the consequences of dying.
No. Now, on the lighter side, we have some other people as well. Now, Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic. Well, let's look at Atlantic Records. Now, many of the gospel singers becoming soul singers that we've become very fond of over the years, all the way to later acts like Led Zeppelin, Well, one of the founders, partners, was Jerry Wexler, and very interesting person, very much responsible for creating the sound of Atlantic Records, and which is a key component of the sound of American music in the latter part of the 20th century. The rock sound, the soul sound. He was behind this, and no one probably thought about it much at the same time, but when he was making Bob Dylan's Born Again album, and Bob Dylan wanted to sing some of the lyrics, he declined because he said, "I'm a secular Jew."
All right.
So.
Oh, and he didn't like the lyrics, which were what, religious?
Very religious. Bob Dylan had made a very religious Christian album several years ago.
All right.
But Jerry Wexler identified himself as a secular person, as a non-believer, and was not comfortable with that.
But let me, again, as an aside, when you say a secular Jew, and people, you know, my name is Greenberger, and I'm happy to say that my heritage is Jewish. It is my heritage. It's not my religion. I'm very pleased and proud of you know, where my forebears, what they went through and who they are. You can be a Jew without being religious.
Well, I think that's probably one of the interesting things about Jewish culture, is that it is so rich that it can live separate from the religion. I think that could apply to other cultures as well. There's no reason why an Italian person could become an atheist and still think, let's get together with our friends and bake a whole bunch of really good cookies once in spring.
Yeah.
That'd be a perfect substitute for a feast day of any saint.
All right.
Cookies are still nice and tasty.
All right.
But, you know, with music, let's look at a wonderful capitalist as well as a fantastic entertainer. And New Orleans this year in the Jazz and Heritage Festival for 2011 is very happy that Mr. Jimmy Buffett is coming to visit us again.
All right.
Very, very popular entertainer.
Yes, he is.
Very difficult to get close to him, even at Jazz Fest, to see him. He's a non-believer. He has gone so far as someone who's really kind of left country music behind, as to ridicule religion on stage, and his fans love it. So I'd say typically, if you are an extreme religious person, you're going to find at least some point in the Jimmy Buffett show, he's going to offend you. And you better have a sense of humor about it, because it's going to happen. He's also,
despite that, he has a very large following.
Very large following.
Okay.
And also a very successful capitalist. Would he be one of the greats as far as music compared to a Bach or a Beethoven? He hasn't moved the technology or changed the paradigm the way the Beatles have. But he understood a long time ago that the best product he has to sell is Jimmy Buffett and a Jimmy Buffett life.
Okay.
He's very comfortable selling that. He's done a very good job of doing it. But people enjoy the concept of being a parrot head.
You're certainly presenting a variety of different entrepreneurs.
We are everywhere.
Okay.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with selling something and selling a lot of it. Jimmy Buffett has done a lot of charitable work as well.
Okay.
It's not uncommon for him to give lots of money. He has helped people.
I'm looking at your paperwork there. You still have other. You have others.
We have others.
All right. Well, you have a few minutes left.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And so let's look at back to kind of mainstream people who are currently defending the concept of evolution, science, and also capitalism. Somebody whose books I've been very fond of, the editor, publisher of Skeptic Magazine,
all right,
and the Skeptic Society, Michael Shermer.
Okay.
Michael Shermer, his origins, like many people in the secular movement, began as a very religious person. He was actually more religious than his parents were, and going off to study to become a minister. He moved away from that, two reasons. the concept of having to learn the Greek and Latin languages to get the degree in theology. He really never got into those languages. He was also exposed to, back to the origins of the talk, is the work of Miss Ayn Rand.
Okay. And
was highly influenced by capitalism as a philosophy. So he lost his faith in exploring these new concepts and switched over to really being a proponent of capitalism under that model of living for yourself, which is not an evil in itself. Does not mean you can't help people, because we've seen people who have lived to become very successful people have the means to help other people, as opposed to simply having the desire to help other people.
All right. Well, now you are aware, having been to many of our meetings, our no-show meetings, that a great number of our secular humanists are more inclined toward socialism than they are toward capitalism. What can you say to them?
Well, I think quite often we have to accept that people are human. And even while asking religious people, theists, to have an open mind towards other ideas, we can be closed to ideas as well. I think also that there's too much of a tendency to take the concept of the capitalist and say, surely we have come across people at Enron who have done bad things. And really, you're not going to find even a Michael Shermer defending the behavior of people at Enron. Skilling and Lillet, very few people are defending them as far as the morality of what they've done. We're very displeased by that. That does not mean that capitalism is bereft of value to society. It certainly doesn't mean that capitalism hasn't lifted people up out of the past and prior to capitalism. The origins, it came out of mercantilism, which was far worse than that. Mercantilism was the concept of defeating the other person in economic combat. Capitalism is about elevating markets, selling. You don't sell by destroying your customers.
But there is this feeling in America, and apparently we see it across the world, a great disparity between the wealth of the people at the top and the condition of the people at the bottom, which disparity seems to be growing even in this country. Is there something that should or could be done about that?
Well, I think some of that, if you look at how it's growing, is something of a misjudgment, because as technology changes the way things are done, Mark Zuckerberg, trying to do what he's doing with Facebook in 1970 with 1970s technology, could have possibly built a small bulletin board system of computers which preceded there, which was dependent upon having a certain number of telephone lines to run. So the scale of making money with a Facebook in 70, 80, 90 is very, very small. Possibly their technology.
Yes.
But a very small scale. So much of the great wealth there from someone like a Zuckerberg is that a market manager today can manage with technology a far larger portfolio than he could have managed in any decade into the past. Yes, we are seeing some people make a lot more money than before.
Yes.
But the companies are now on a global scale. A CEO of a global company makes much more money.
Well, Kevin, I want to thank you for being here, and I'm sure our audience has been quite stimulated. I want to thank you folks for watching our show, and really hope that we will see you often.